Hello.
I cannot tell you just emotions right now looking at this audience right here. Honestly, we were walking over.
We were terrified.
Very, very deep emotion.
It was like a last-minute decision to do the panel. And walking over, I was talking to Jeff, and I was just like, Jeff, I hope there's going to be people there.
We had this terrifying imagination that maybe you guys didn't really like us.
And on top of that,
walk to get over here.
on top of that, I'm like, why don't we just walk to San Diego? Oh my God, this is crazy. Weston was kind of far. But guys, thanks for showing up, honestly. We have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to do our traditional kind of Q&A session where we have a couple mics that are out there, so if people want to ask some questions, feel free to raise your hand when we get to that part. But how many of you guys have been to the booth and tried Ashes of Creation? And what do you guys think of our pre-alpha build? Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got to tell you, this team, our team, we were living in a dungeon for the past 3 months straight. Like, no joke, there was like no light when we stepped out. We came in so early in the morning that the sun wasn't out, and we didn't leave until it was nighttime. So when we flew in the morning to Seattle, everyone was like, you know, that you could.
I went blind for like an hour.
I had like dizziness, I couldn't see anything. It was crazy.
That's regular hours for me.
Okay, there you go. I think
We should introduce everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, we should. I'm sorry. Jeff?
So I am Jeffrey Bard. I am lead designer of Ashes of Creation.
I am Stephen Sharif. I'm the creative director and founder of Intrepid Studios.
I'm Keith Kovac. I'm one of the senior character artists at Intrepid.
I am Michael Bacon, senior general artist.
I am Matt Broom. I'm a senior character artist.
All right.
High five.
We finally are letting the artists out to talk a little bit.
Right?
A very, very bad idea.
Not good.
With rules.
Very
artists
bad.
It got so busy at the booth on Friday that I didn't have time to get on stream, and I was like, Michael, take it and run with it.
A very, very, very bad idea.
It was pretty crazy. So let's start with actually one announcement that we made and we leaked, I think, a day before PAX actually began. We have a date for our Alpha Zero.
What is that date, Stephen?
It is December 15th, 2017. This year.
This year.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks for telling us.
We actually,
Yeah, we just found out. This is
did you just find out?
I'm kind of rethinking
no.
this
Now
whole
I'm more
Seattle
terrified.
trip. What the-
I'm more terrified. Thank you.
No.
Back to the dungeon.
Yes, exactly. Get back in there.
Can we have
No. We were having a long discussion about whether or not we could reach our Alpha Zero this year.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, the team has been unbelievable, with the experience that's actually here at Intrepid, with the MMORPG specific experience that we were actually able to turn out that Alpha Zero this year.
Yeah, I mean, with what we've got for PAX, what we were able to get done for PAX, kind of showed us that, hey, we can work at this rate for a really long time. So what we were able to get done for PAX was really surprising to me, and we can push that to our Alpha Zero pretty easily.
You weren't supposed to tell anybody that.
What?
That it was surprising. We were confident the entire time.
No, we were confident the entire time. But no, right? Like this is a panel to kind of get to know.
We weren't
the
up
project
until
like.
5 a.m. the entire week before coming to Seattle at all. No. We had it. It was easy, right?
It was easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Right?
It was easy, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was easy.
Back in the dungeon.
Totally easy.
No. So actually, what I wanted to do before we get into a couple other announcements is kind of just run you guys through the process of bringing together, honestly, a startup studios. I don't know if anybody really knows this, but Keith Kovac was actually the first person hired at Intrepid Studios.
Number one.
That was before there was an office, right?
Yeah. Actually, no.
No?
Was it? No.
Well, no, there was an office, but there was a couple of desks and no
Oh, yeah.
computers.
Yeah, that's right. His interview he walked into was just desks there that were completely empty, no monitors, no computers, no nothing, in this like warehouse-looking building.
Yeah.
Humble
And
beginnings.
Steven sitting in one chair, and I was
In the center of the building.
in the center of the building.
And I was like, walk to me.
Yeah, it was, it was a crazy experience. You walk into somewhere that and you don't know if you're in the right spot, and you only have one person, Steven, just explaining this idea, like he's like spilling it out so passionately, and you're like, okay, I'm on. That sounds really good. I'm like, when did the computers get here? I can't really work without them.
I don't think they actually came for at least another couple weeks.
It was like a week, yeah.
Yeah. That was crazy. No, I can't. Thinking back to it now, even though that was like, it'll be what, 2 years in December?
2 years, yeah, December.
2 years in December, December 2nd.
Yeah.
December 2nd, 2 years. And that was just such a surreal experience, actually, now going through and just looking at like these people that were going to make this game a reality. And seeing the talent that was coming in through those doors was unbelievable. Like, I actually get a little bit kind of emotional when I think about it. But, being here now today at PAX and seeing this actually come to fruition is like unbelievable.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen, like, I've been working the front of the line all the last 3 days, so I recognize, like, a lot of you guys, like, I personally talked to, and you guys all seem so excited about the game, and it's like,
You
it
probably-
really drives us.
He needs a hug.
Yeah, no, pretty cool. So tell us, actually, Jeff,
Okay.
a little bit about your experience coming on board.
Yeah, so I got a heads up from a buddy of mine who was talking about this Steven character who was interested in starting up a new studio in San Diego and wanted to make an MMO. I'd never heard of him. I've never heard of the studio. It kind of just appeared out of nowhere, and I was like, okay, I'll talk to him. It didn't really sound like it would be something realistic or, because I've been there before. I've seen studios rise and fall, and people who think that making games is easy and can, just like turn around a really cool, really big idea in a couple of months, right? Like I've seen that a lot. So I kind of expected something really similar, but I wanted to talk anyways because I owed my friend a favor. And so...
Oh my gosh! All right.
So I came to the studio and I got interviewed by Steven and a couple of the other people who were there already. And his pitch was really intense, and it was something that kind of really inspired me. It really made me feel like, okay, this guy's got the passion, and he's got a plan, and he's got a vision, and the things that he's laying out to me aren't crazy. Like, I know how MMOs get made, I know the systems that are involved in there, and he seemed like he did his research, and he knew how to get there. Maybe not the specific technical details, but he knew the plan, and that plan was clear, and that plan is kind of what has gotten us to this point right now, where we don't spend a lot of time, kind of dreaming, right? We spend a lot of our time just building and executing on his vision. And that really helps us get things done, right? And I think that's a problem a lot of startups have, is they kind of don't know where they want to go or like which direction they should go. And here we knew from day one exactly where, when, and how we were going to do it. And that's how we got here today. So if we keep doing this, we're going to have a game real soon.
I think so. Michael, tell us about your experience.
Me. Yeah. I think that's a question that Steven should answer. No,
Oh, what was it?
I was tying it back to you.
No.
No, I've been in the industry since like the dawn of time.
Yes.
When video games were rocks and they
Did
were
you work on
etching.
like Duke Nukem and stuff?
Yeah, I did like one of the Duke Nukem, like a couple of them, I guess.
When I was a kid, that was like
The
one of my
console
favorite.
Stuff.
Yes.
The console stuff when I was working in Florida. Yeah, so it started with a startup and company in Wilsonville, Oregon. And then, anyway, so just jumped from company to company to company. And then I was working at SOE for the last 10 years, working on EverQuest 2 and did like the, the launch pitch for the Star Wars, what was that? It was the animated series game that we were working on there.
Clone Wars?
Yeah, Clone Wars. So I did like the pitch for that went to Lucas. And that was fun. And then, so then anyway, I ended up splitting off. I was working on my own projects. And then I kind of finished the art for that, and then I was kind of looking for a new gig, and I was looking for something that was kind of, back, I always loved that indie sort of, small studio, very passionate, away from like the giant corporate structure where you're just kind of a cog in a wheel.
Right.
And, and then of course we came in and interviewed and found that this place was, definitely right up my alley. I wanted to be able to get in there and do a lot of different stuff and shape and mold, a project, with a bunch of passionate individuals. And and then that was
Something really amazing about Michael Bacon that a lot of people may not know.
His hair.
His hair
But
It's all about
defies gravity. Always.
I want to touch his
is
Touch my hair.
that he can concept, he can model, he can animate, he can even design. He's an amazing musician with the guitar. This guy is like a Renaissance man. He's like the Leonardo da Vinci.
A master of, a jack of all trades, master of none.
I would say master of
Pretty
all.
close to master of all.
Okay, at
You're being
quite a few
modest.
of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, at most of them, or some of them, or whatever.
He also makes his own games in his spare time.
That is true. Yeah,
That's true.
absolutely. I actually have one on my phone.
That's true. You got one in your
What's it
phone.
called? Shut up or
Shout out for
Retro Assault.
Retro Assault.
Retro Assault.
All right, there you go.
Sure, that was in the iTunes store right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Check it out. Oh, wow, I got like one of my plugs in there. Well, that's cool. Thank you, Stephen.
Just wow. Another amazing member of the team, Matt Broom, a legend kind of in the industry. Yeah, legend in the industry, I would
multiple
say.
industries.
Oh yeah, multiple
The
industries.
myth, the legend.
Matt, tell us about your experience coming on board.
I've done a lot of stuff. All right,
Tell us about the stuff you've done.
I'll keep this quick so it doesn't get boring. Spent some time at Sony, made a lot of games. We did vertical pitches for Harry Potter games. But the games that we put out were like, I put out were H1Z1, worked on Star Wars Galaxies, worked on some EverQuest 2, worked on DC Universe Online, PlanetSide 2, EverQuest Online Adventures, which at the time was the first PlayStation 2 MMO.
It was a revolutionary game. Everybody should play it.
Insanely hard to make. And then came full circle. And get kind of into my experience with Intrepid. It was funny because I was already working on a game with a good friend of mine, Kevin. And he had told me about, this guy, Steven Sharif. He's got this amazing idea. He wants to make this big-ass MMO. It's got everything in it, and then everything has something to go along with it. And I was like, that sounds like super, super hard. So ultimately,
Little did you know.
let's do it.
as soon as I stopped throwing up in my mouth, went in and sat down with Steven. And to keep it short, I've been with a lot of creative directors. I've sat in a lot of rooms with people that have big world ideas. Steven is like a computer. He's like a computer. When you work with him, you get the same answer every time. You don't see where it's written down, but you get the same answer every time. If he wants mounts in a certain kind of mount in a certain color, it's the same answer every time. And in closing, what I also love about working at Intrepid is when we're crunching, you guys notice that the founder keeps telling you stories about how he's there late into the morning. I have never worked at a company, this is my 8th game, and the guy who owns and runs the place is side by side with you.
Well, I got to tell you something, and I think a lot of us know this. When something is a passion, it doesn't feel like work. Regardless of if you're there till 5 in the morning or not, you are loving what you're doing, and Ashes of Creation has been nothing but an absolutely just pleasure of an experience to kind of work with not only the team, but the project that we're creating is something that is exciting me a lot.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
It's for me. It's every month is something new and something rewarding, and a lot of it comes from you guys, right? Like, we can't make this in a vacuum. It doesn't exist without everybody, and your responses, your engagement, all of that stuff is kind of what keeps us going in this crazy experiment that we're doing right now.
I know I've said this before, but I kid you not, even if I get home at 3 or 4 in the morning or whatever, I still always end up going to sleep either reading the forums like this or the Discord, and I fall asleep by my phone hitting my face. That's usually how that happens. But I mean, it's all about really getting connected with the people that you're really making this game for. And it's an awesome thing to see just here at PAX, the faces. It's one thing to
love
read the
getting to play
words,
with you
right?
guys,
It's
yeah.
another thing to see the faces playing the game, playing actually Ashes of Creation this early. I mean, it's something that's awesome. I love it.
You know, even when we went to our Kickstarter, like we had no idea if we were going to make $1,000 on our first day. I mean, we didn't know. Like, and the next thing you know, it's like $1 million in the first day, and we're like,
Watching that Kickstarter was
insane.
crazy. Literally on the first day. So, I mean, excuse me. A lot of people, you know, going to Kickstarter wasn't about the funding, honestly. It was about kind of community development and the marketing aspect, because as a lot of people know, you know, starting a brand new IP in an MMO genre where, you know, it's kind of dominated by AAA studios, big studios that have massive amounts of money to just throw at marketing, you got to take it everywhere you can. And Kickstarter was one of those methods. So when we pressed that button to launch that campaign, I mean, my hand was like trembling. I was like, oh my God, I hope that people actually agree with what we're saying. I hope that people are excited about this idea, this no pay to win stuff, this, you know, players controlling the narrative of the story, and all. They just don't think these are like, oh, the same buzzwords I've heard of, you know, before, because you kind of get that stigma sometimes.
yeah, it looked really good on paper, but
Yes.
we didn't know if it was going to translate.
Resonate, absolutely.
It absolutely did.
Well, you had a little bit of a pulse because
did.
like
Yeah.
we had like videos that we would put up like for internal purposes where we like post them up on like an account or whatever, and then we would post them on Slack just so the team could see them, and then instantly the press like latched onto them and
Oh, I know.
started making articles out of it. I was like, oh God, we gotta shut this thing down and start making
And they're
everything
like,
secure.
Dark Horse Studio comes out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah, and you kind of knew right there that you had something. You know, like-
Steven,
yes.
can you tell all these MMO gamers how many MMOs you've played?
I mean, I've played a lot of MMOs, honestly, and I mean, I've been playing MMOs since I was, honestly, this sounds crazy. I was 6.5, I think. I started my first one back in 1991. I didn't know that it was $6 by the hour, but my mother found out. The pricing structure was a little different back then. I guess it cost a lot of money to be on AOL at the time. But Neverwinter, was my first MMO, and I've played a lot. I've played a lot of MMOs. But
played
no,
everything.
that's helped me to define the image that I have for Ashes of Creation, honestly. So.
It's one of those things, right? Like your first MMO is kind of always nostalgic and awesome, right? I played Anarchy Online as my like kind of first real MMO, and I always look back and I go, that was the best MMO. And I think a lot of people have that same story, where it's that first one trying to recreate that, and you keep moving from MMO to kind of try to find it again. That's kind of where this comes out of, because we all had that picture in our heads of what an MMO could be, right? And kind of what it represents to be in a world that's filled with people who mean something to that world. And that's where this all came from, is kind of that first, trying to recreate that first experience.
And I think that sometimes when creating something new, you want to be somewhat innovative, but in the MMORPG genre, you also want to be somewhat traditional as well, because there's a sense of nostalgia among the community that they have that first love, they have that first experience, and they want to recreate that. So you have to kind of blend those two, and they can be diametrically opposed at times, right?
Yeah, no, they're definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're doing with Ashes, is we have a lot of traditional feeling systems at the same time. We're
trying
bringing
to
something
move it forward.
absolutely
Into the
Yes,
future.
yes.
Because MMOs need that, right? Like MMOs need to evolve, and we're trying to do that, is to move it forward, because it's been stagnant for a little bit too long, I think.
So I know that that we actually announced we had a special guest here. Unfortunately, that did not work out. But we do have the announcement
Of our special guest.
of our special guest, and it actually is the musical composer for the game. But I want to preface this by saying that when I first had the just idea of Ashes of Creation, I had also the idea of who the composer would be, and this is that person. I'm a huge sci-fi fan with shows and stuff. I love Star Trek. I love Battlestar Galactica. I also am a big fan of The Walking Dead. And one of the, in my opinion, greatest composers that's out there right now is an individual by the name of Bear McCreary. And Bear McCreary, the composer for Battlestar Galactica, The Walking Dead, and a lot of other amazing things, is actually the composer for Ashes of Creation. So, talking about music and the score that's going to be in Ashes, for me, when I've played games in the past, it's always that immersive quality that brings me in, that takes me out of reality and puts me into this kind of fantasy world. This suspension of disbelief is assisted by not just the visuals, but by the audio, the music itself, having a distinct identity for a zone, having a distinct identity for a culture and a theme for the game. Those things help me to become a part of the game, really, right?
Without a doubt.
And Bear is a phenomenal composer when it comes to
the conversations that we've had with him are pretty incredible.
Yes.
I'm really excited to start seeing what he can do with us, because he is totally 100% bought into the idea of Ashes. I think we've turned him into a fan. So.
I got an email from him yesterday that says, I just want to get into the world and submerge myself in the story.
Yeah.
And, he has a good amount of the story that is not released, and I think he's falling in love, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that was our one of our announcements, but I want to be able to also open it up a little bit for some questions. Yeah? We want to do some questions? I mean, we're pretty traditional with Q&A stuff, and I know that there's a lot of questions out there. What, we good? Yeah?
Nothing,
Questions?
I was just going to reflect.
Everything back.
We have a mic set up actually right there, and then we also have Asari, who is a floating mic, and if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to step up to the mic or raise your hand, and the team here is going to answer some stuff. We also got some swag that we're going to hand out too. So
That's right. Free stuff, free swag.
Alpha codes? That's a good question. We'll see. We'll see about that. We'll see about that.
Alpha codes.
Technically, I bought 50 of them that we still have to hand out.
Yeah, you did.
Right? All right, so who's got some questions?
We've got a fellow up there.
Feel free to step up. Give us your name and your question.
Yes, my name is John, and I have not seriously played an MMO since EverQuest.
Okay.
My question, I thought about bringing a 15-minute manifesto, but instead I'll just imagine that as subtext to this question.
Okay.
To what degree will soulbound equipment be featured in Ashes?
That's a good question. Not a very high degree, honestly. The way that we're actually constructing the economy in Ashes of Creation is going to involve items that are not soulbound. We want the market to work off of transferable goods, and actually we have hired at Intrepid Studios a PhD economist named Rocco, who is helping us to build those systems. And I think it's important that for a healthy economy, you have the ability to deconstruct and destroy these items and transfer these items. Another very important part of Ashes of Creation and what we're doing with regards to crafting of these items that are not soulbound is that the economy itself is regionalized. There's no global warehouse, there's no global auction house. You actually have to transit goods through the caravan system to region, and that can be pretty risky.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you take a look at a soulbound system, right, that's intended to pull items out of circulation, right? There are other ways of doing that beyond just binding it to your character. So you're going to see stuff like that in Ashes of Creation.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I talked to him in line too. So he went through.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
Hi, so my name is Heidi. A little bit of my background, I got started in MMOs with Ultima Online, and then I moved to EverQuest and EverQuest 2 and WoW. And I kind of fell out of MMOs because once EverQuest 2 and WoW came out, it became very hard to participate in higher level content unless you were part of a guild or consistently gaming with other players. I'm antisocial online. I don't want to play with other players, occasionally with friends, but I also have kids now, so I can't do the hardcore gaming. So how accessible is Ashes going to be for someone like me who loves to play in a more casual manner and doesn't want to have to engage in large group activities?
Okay, good question.
Yeah, really good question.
So there's two components to answering that question. One is going to be the layers of community that we have available in Ashes of Creation that don't necessarily involve a lot of dedication on your part. You could literally log in and talk with people who are fellow citizens of a node that you're a part of, who are fellow members of an organization such as a Scholars Academy or a Thieves Guild that you're a part of, who may be in a guild should you choose to do that, who are followers of the same religion that you may be in. And there are going to be quests that are specifically geared towards individuals of those layers of community as well as groups within those layers of communities. So you're going to have a lot of solo play that's possible if you want to stick to yourself, or you're going to be able to quickly find a group within the specific chat channels that may exist for those layers of community. And it's going to be something that you can really just log in to do. You don't have to have super coordinated timed events that you can do. There are going to be a lot of timed events as well for guilds and communities that are more structured, that are more organized, and have more dedicated bonds of groupmanship, right? But we want, because this is a non-faction based game, we want to have a lot of pseudo sort of factions where these bonds can be formed naturally within the game, and that can create some rivalry, some competition, some player-driven content as well.
Just to give you an example of how this might work, right? You are a solo player, right? You kind of keep to yourself, you log in, you do your own thing. But let's say you put the house down, right? That makes you a part of the city, right? Now you have ownership of your citizenship, basically, at that point. Now the city comes under attack, right? You have to defend it from a siege. Well, you don't have to group up for that. You don't have to talk to anybody else for that. But you still will feel ownership of it. You'll still want to defend your home. So you can still participate in that siege as a defender and not have to necessarily engage with anybody else. I mean, it's still possible for you to participate without having to necessarily be social. It'll still be kind of a community-based event, but your engagement in it is kind of your own decision.
Okay. So that actually brings up a follow-up question for me. So if I place a house in a city and that city gets attacked and I'm not online, am I going to lose my home?
That's a good question too. So the mechanics that are involved with declaring a siege against nodes involve a very difficult quest that the attackers must go through first in order to attain the item necessary to declare the siege. And then there is a specific time period, a window that's based off of server time localities that they can declare a siege. After they've declared a siege, depending on the size of the node they've declared against, there's going to be a window of preparation available for the citizens of that siege to know when the impending siege is coming. So for example, a village stage node will see maybe 3 days of lead time before the siege begins after a declaration's been declared. You'll know when that siege is going to be coming, and it will be in an appropriate hour based on the time zone that the server's a part of.
And if I'm watching my kids and I can't play, will I lose my home?
Then it's definitely possible at that point. The thing is, though, is that we don't want to be overly penalizing, right? Like the resources that you put into it, the decoration effort that you've put into making it nice, you can save your layout, your resources will be returned to you, the kind of blueprinting that goes on in creating that house will be returned to you.
Okay.
We want these things to happen, and we don't want to people to feel like penalized for that, right? So it's not about like we're taking it away from you. You'll lose your citizenship along with the node, but the node's not there anyway. So
and the most important part about the sieging mechanic is that the world is designed a lot of times in previous MMOs. Sorry, I was a little hot there. A lot of times in previous MMOs, you will see that these sandbox style games kind of give an excuse to the developers not to create a lot of content, right? And that's a big no-no in my book. I feel the exact opposite of that, especially with Ashes of Creation, being that kind of sandbox feel a little bit requires actually that you make more content than a theme park has, because you don't want to just give players the illusion of choice. You want to have meaningful choices that actually dictate the direction and progression of the server. So we want these shifts to happen where nodes get destroyed and brought up, because each node has its own type of arcing story, has its own content that when a node progresses, it locks out its neighboring nodes from progressing as well. So that shift of node creation and destruction allows for new content to be experienced by everybody, which means that if you do lose your home, it's not going to be incredibly difficult to place it down again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, we got one.
we got
Let's
one
do a
over
hand one.
Hey guys. Whoa, jeez.
Get in there.
Yeah. So, a little bit of my background with MMOs. I've played quite a few of them over the years. Mostly jumping around based on what my other friends are playing, and then sticking around for a varying amount of time, depending on how long they stick with it as well. So, like, I've tried Blatant Soul, I've tried Terra, I've tried Black Desert. Right now, I'm playing Phantasy Star Online 2. But my question about that is, what is your guys' stance on alt characters, and how is level progression going to look in relation to that? And then also classes. Are you going to be able to switch classes, or is it one of those games where you have to decide on one and then you got to stick with it for a while?
Okay. So alts, perfectly fine. Players want to have alts. That's an amount of effort and time that they're devoting to actually progressing that alt so that it levels up. That's fine. With regards to the class progression, I may have missed the middle one there. The class progression is following 8 archetypes. You choose a primary archetype that gives you your primary active skills. Each active skill will have a subset of slots available to apply augments to. Augments will change the way that those active skills look and feel, and some of the things that they can do. So, for example, we've given in the past, and I'm going to talk a little bit faster so we can get as many questions as possible. Hope they can understand what I'm saying.
We've got a line.
Yeah. Hopefully, okay, so let's say, for example, you have a fighter and that fighter has a rush skill, and you choose your secondary class, which again is from one of those 8 archetypes, a rogue, for example. That charge will charge towards the target, deal X damage, do some condition modifier. If you take the rogue and you take his stealth augment and apply it to that rush ability, then you'll go invisible upon the rush. You'll keep the rush primary skill, but you'll augment it to kind of adapt to the identity of that rogue archetype. It won't grant you new skills. Or let's say you were to go with the mage secondary class, and you take the teleportation augment and you apply it to your rush. Then you'll teleport to your target. So it kind of gives you more of a horizontal slice progression that's available from the secondary class, which is a total combination of 64 classes that will be available in the game.
And to answer your question as far as respecing goes, for the primary class, we are leaning towards no on that, and for the subclass, we're leaning towards yes. So it's a matter, we've got to do some more experimentation with it, but that's kind of what our answer would be right now if you force me to say yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
My name's James. I really, first to start off, can tell the amount of planning that you guys have been able to do, and obviously to Stephen, you can see how you have a lot of people who've come behind you and to support this really well thought out idea. I've come from a background of a lot of PvP MMOs. Dark Age of Camelot was probably one of my favorite. As you continue to bring on a lot of this strong experience from a variety of backgrounds, both on the music side, art side, design side, how structured do you see your plan being, and do you see it, is it something that's you could really take this from now all the way till the end of the game? Is there probably going to evolve a little bit over time? Because in this short period of time, you guys have really put a lot out, and I think that's because of the structure of the plan. Do you be able to see yourself work at this pace continuously, or is it something you're going to have to adjust?
So I think one of the, now I haven't been in the industry outside of starting Intrepid Studios, but I will tell you that one of the recurring themes I hear from my developers that I bring on board is that being at Intrepid Studios and being able to produce this amount of content in the amount of time that we have really is a result of having a very specific vision, having a set parameter of what we want to build, and not having to kind of explore different directions while we're building. I think in the past, some other companies will have people start in one direction and then scrap it after a period of time and start in another direction and scrap that in a period of time and start another direction, and obviously nothing gets done. They wonder why. So for me, yes, there is a defined parameter in which this game exists. Obviously, game development is an iterative process, which means that when we start the alphas and betas, where our community gets to become a part and see what we're producing, they will give us feedback, and that feedback is obviously important because sometimes you can lose a little bit of perspective when you're so deep entrenched in something and you need an outside eye to give you an idea of what that is. Does that mean it's going to change any major overarching ideas or systems in the game? No, I don't believe so. We have that pretty set. But there will be some tweaking, obviously.
Yeah, and give a shout out to Epic for their Unreal Engine. Really makes things like
absolutely, yeah,
speeds up the whole process.
Yeah. Plus, when you got a fast, agile, small team, we have teeth, so like we were constantly chomping into like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I mean, it's really cool to be able to see the process of creation, like when you first like concept to, kind of creation, that kind of stuff. And it's a process that happens very quickly.
Agreed.
So like we're constantly just slamming stuff in the game, like, let's do this and this and that, and then moving immediately on to the next thing.
And one of the great things about having such experienced MMORPG specific artists and designers and engineers is that I can literally go to them and just say, hey, I got this idea, can you run with it? And they'll make it their own. And they don't really have to, I don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to make it great because I know what they've done. I've seen what they're capable of. So I can give them that trust that's really like, you go and do this thing and you own it. Like that's you.
Yeah. Right? We also got a lot of guys who are very flexible in the team. So like there's a lot of things where you'll just come up and say, our concept guy over here is like, Jeff, like, oh, he's working on these things over here, but can you do this? Hey, what's your concept out that real quick? And so it's not like a scenario where it's like, well, you're this. This is your job and this is all you do. It's like we wear a lot of hats and we're very flexible in that regard. And so because of that, there's not a lot of bottlenecks. So we've constantly like branching out into like other, areas and fields and just, basically just taking on whatever we can, and that keeps things moving and keeps things, kind of just
another huge
forward.
part of that is the atmosphere and the culture that's at the studios. It's an extremely flat and collaborative process. I mean, we have a lot of people that have an unbelievable amount of experience, and everybody can kind of learn from each other's experiences. They work with each other. They have multiple hats, like Michael said. So literally, we don't have offices. We're all on the main floor with each other, literally sitting next to each other, able to just roll over on that cement floor with our chairs.
That's what I was going to say.
Or just yell at each other. That's what we do a lot.
The flat studio that we have, I don't have to go to an art director of an art director to get back into figuring out where the design is going. I go right over to Jeff and I get the iteration right then, and I go back and I'm already working on it, and we're done.
Yeah.
And also not a lot of ego. There's
not at all.
So I mean, it's like, so we're just, we're not trying to step on each other. We're not trying to,
Right.
We're just trying to make an amazing game.
An amazing game.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
we got
we
another.
got one more. Wait.
We can go 1, 2, 1, 2.
You think so? Okay, that sounds good. That's unfair to them, though.
Oh, I guess
we have a
that's
long
true.
line. Let's go 2-1. 2-1.
Okay,
So
2-1.
we'll
Cool.
take you now. Go ahead.
So I've been going mid-core to hardcore through World of Warcraft and Lich King all the way to Savage Final Fantasy. I'm curious what you have in terms of raid content, and if not calling it raids, then small group high difficulty challenges.
So currently, our raid size will begin at 40 for our alpha testing. We intend to have massive battles. I mean, we want to put the massive back in massively multiplayer. So. And I think that really just goes back to the identity of the MMORPG genre. I mean, it's about community, right? And you want to be existing in a community with as many of your friends as possible. You want to see this massive content that you're going to be able to explore together. And it's not necessarily that it's against the solo player, but it's that if there are these large events, you can go and be a part of those things. They're happening in the world. They are something that's necessary. Another huge thing about our events is going to be the triggered events that are dependent on where nodes kind of erupt in the world and what type of experiences those create, what dark things lurk from the shadows against those cities and come out like the dragon from the mountain and stuff, right?
Exactly. The intention is to kind of have we want to talk to all of our players, right? I think a lot of people have probably heard of the Bartle system, where you've got explorers, you've got adventurers, you've got combat people, and you've got like social people, right? And MMO really, like in my mind, like archetypically should be all of those things, right? Because we're trying to create a separate world, and there are tons of different types of people in those worlds. So, we want to have small group content, we want to have large group content, we want to have huge raid content, and we want all those things to be kind of opt-in, where if there is this giant dragon coming and attacking the city, that those groups and those raids kind of naturally form out of that city's kind of need for defense. Right. So a lot of this stuff you're going to see kind of more organic forming groups that kind of form naturally based on what's happening in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, if you don't mind me adding on to that.
Sure.
So you mentioned like large scale. Is there anything like small group high difficulty? Or?
Yes.
Yep.
So the important thing about creating that large scale content, and also the interdependency that Jeff was talking about between the different sizes of and types of players that are in the game, is that you want to have something that it can be done for each event that kind of relates to the different types of players who are playing the game, right? So for example, you have like a castle siege that's going to include these large guilds going against each other. You're going to have these kind of mini occurrences that are within the castle siege that may only involve a small group, or they may have solo players capable of influencing something in the siege. So there are things to do kind of for the solo to the raid size and in between.
Yeah, and if you come by our booth, we have an example of that small group content.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Absolutely.
Hi. So I mostly just came here because I saw it in the program, and I saw it was an MMO. You raised a lot of money on Kickstarter. You must have promised something or been about something that was very different than people felt they needed in the industry. So for other people that might be a bit like me in here, could you give like a high-level overview of the things you're most excited about that you feel are different than the standard MMO? And just a quick yes or no question, do you have a mathematician?
Do we have a mathematician?
Yes. So you mentioned you have an economist, and I've seen a lot of games. They spend a lot of time iterating on simple balance issues that could be solved by someone who looked at the equation and said, yeah, that's not balanced. But
We don't have a mathematician specifically, but we're all pretty competent with math.
Yeah. No, we have CS guys who are pretty familiar with math.
Absolutely.
I mean, they know linear
Yeah.
algebra, and they know
Right.
they're pretty advanced.
Yeah, I see their books on their desk.
Yeah, they're pretty scary.
I look at them and I'm like, what is that?
It's just arcane symbols. They bring things into the world.
That's a lot of
It's pretty
Greek.
amazing.
To give a real quick overview, something that's very specifically different about Ashes of Creation is putting the agency over the narrative in the hands of the players. So when you enter the world, there is no existing static NPC structure. You're going to move into the wilderness, and there's going to be these nodes that exist with these zones of influence that apply to each node. And as players move around and hotspot the activity in the world, the nodes are going to be collecting experience from normal activities that players do, such as killing monsters, doing quests, gathering, building homes, all those different things. When a node collects enough experience, it's going to threshold to one of 6 stages. As it progresses down those 6 stages, you're going to see NPCs appear. You're going to see a camp, a village, a town, a city, eventually a metropolis. At every stage is going to be unlocking new content that's specific to the location of that node. So players are going to be able to build literally cities up from the ground, and then they're also going to be able to destroy them to pave the way for new content. Nodes specifically, when they get advanced in stages, disable nearby nodes. So you are literally locking out content that's available, and players are going to have to build this up. Each server is going to experience a different history. Each server is going to have a different story told.
cool, thanks.
Yep.
That was quick, man.
I'm sorry.
I'm impressed.
That's the first time I've said that.
So you stated before that your most important system that the most players interact with is the combat system, which is what my question's about. You've recently added the combat minigame bar. It feels comfortable on a mage. At first my reaction was I hated it, but the randomness in the mage feels at home. On the melee classes, not so much. How set in stone were you guys on the minigame? And are you going to carry it over to all classes, or on, for instance, on a melee class, were you thinking about maybe doing something a little different?
So let me give a pretty in-depth overview on the QuickTime event that's been associated with the #1 skill in the combat.
Also known as the combo system.
Also known as the combo or precision system. So specifically, I do believe it is correct that combat is one of the most important aspects of an MMORPG, obviously making it feel fluid, making it feel comfortable, because it's something that you do very often. The reason that we added the QuickTime event was because we didn't want to have an auto attack feature. The QuickTime event doesn't apply to all skills. As a matter of fact, it only applies to one skill, and it generates what we call focus. And focus is an alternative energy source that can fuel certain types of skills. So instead of using your auto attack, you're using your primary weapon skill. And this weapon skill is a progression path in and of itself. You have your normal skill tree that you have with your assigned class, but then each weapon has a progression tree as well. And that progression tree allows you to add specific types of conditions that will be procced when you hit a combo in the precision system, in the combo system. Now, The huge thing about QuickTime events obviously is going to be the interaction with your eyes and the UI. And right now our UI is pre-alpha. It is very early. And part of making that more intuitive is obviously going to be an iterative process between developing further the UI and then getting players adjusted to that kind of QuickTime event. Your question, are we set in stone on the QuickTime event? Well, it's something that we'd like to have in our testing phases, obviously, to get better input. I think that there was a lot of, initially when we released and showed that, there was a lot of like, oh, I don't want the QuickTime event. But all of the reactions, almost all of the reactions we've been receiving from people who have been participating in the demo here at PAX has been extremely positive, and they've liked it. So I think that part of giving feedback is actually having a hands-on experience, and then when that hands-on experience is had and you have the feedback to give, we're going to be taking it.
Yeah, like the Melee obviously has problems because people are always outranging you.
Yes.
And the animations for the Melee are really fast. So those are things that are going to be adjusted over time, and kind of we'll find the sweet spot on them.
Right.
You know, this is not a finished product by any means. And we're just going to try and make it better, more fluid. Right now it feels pretty good on 2 of the classes, and it'll continue to get better as we progress. So.
And I will say one other thing. You know, part of the process that we're adopting as a studios is having that very, very, very transparent window in our development that we're literally at PAX showing a pre-alpha build, which I don't think really gets done very much.
I don't think it gets done.
But the reason we're doing it is because we want the community to see what's going on with production. We want them to see the progress we're making, and we want to have that dialogue.
We have an obligation to you, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you guys are the ones who made this possible. So we are obligated to share these things with you. And we might share it warts and all, and we expect that feedback,
Yes.
and we want that feedback, and we appreciate that
Absolutely.
feedback. I mean, if everybody said, hey, your combo system sucks, you know, I think we would probably get rid of it.
You're going to like it. You're going to eat it and like it. No, we're not going to do it. Like it. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, we got one here.
Hi. So, as someone who's played a lot of WoW and has like 16 or something max level characters that I'm doing endgame content on, just how alt friendly are you guys looking at being?
How what?
Alt friendly? Like, how many times am I going to have to do endgame in-locks on different characters?
End game, end locks. I mean, it's going to depend on what your character is, right? And what your goals are as a player, right?
Right.
End game raiding gear isn't going to be necessary to siege a castle, right? It's
Right.
not going to be necessary to hang out in a bar and play your loot. It's not going to be necessary to go out and craft or escort a caravan. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do in this game that don't involve end game raiding.
And there are no account locks on gear or items or specific quests or things like that. I mean, if you're developing a new character, an alternate character, you know, that progression path is an individual progression path of
Once
its own.
I get to the end game,
Yeah.
I'm at the end game.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
End game is a terrible word.
Endgame is a bad word, and I'm going to tell you right now that in Ashes of Creation, we've steered as far away as possible from an endgame type of idea because the world is ever changing. So there's always going to be story arcs that get revealed at a later date. And then because we're also a subscription-based game with absolutely zero whatsoever pay to win, that we are going to be releasing constant content on a monthly basis as well as a quarterly basis that ties into the construction of the world. Yeah.
So before my question, I like the combo system, but can I please move it and make it transparent?
Yes. Absolutely. The UI will be extremely customizable, both in size, in position, in type of UI. You could see if you want to change the bar to a circle, you could change a circle. We want to have a very adaptable, movable, and customizable UI. So, yeah. Go ahead.
So my question is kind of a two-part. What kind of skill cap are you looking for? I know there's a wide range of players, but as far as like, is it going to be like easy to learn, hard to master, or just kind of just a consistent, smooth progress? Or
it's a good question. So real quick, I don't think I've ever really gone into this in detail before. So hold on to your seat.
Oh God.
I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
Okay. So when I envision the skill tree, I see a combination of both action-oriented skills and tab-targetable skills. And having, obviously, movement, positioning matter in both of those. But I see players capable of customizing their skill choices whether they want to be more geared toward tabs targeting or more geared towards action-oriented combat, and having that choice in the skill tree. So when you talk about skill level, obviously you have to balance between skills that require a higher skill level and what type of damage output that has, what type of condition modifiers they can do, compared to a skill that you can just tab target and use a function on, right? So having that balance between those two things, but also giving agency to the player to kind of customize their play experience towards one or the other is something that I think we're going to do pretty well in Ashes.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to go for a pretty high skill floor, right? Where even the worst player can contribute.
Yes.
Not that anybody's bad at playing here, but we want people to play the game. We want people to have fun playing the game. And when you get a really complicated, complex system where you have to worry about a whole lot of different situations, that's tough for some people. So we want to make sure that the entry is pretty easy, and then we want a pretty decently high place where people can kind of experiment with different types of play styles at the same time. So skill will matter.
Yes. Skill will matter, but you'll be able to kind of customize your experience towards either a higher skill end of it or a lower skill end of it, I think. Yeah.
So as a quick follow-up then, I know that you can have huge groups decide things in the game, but have you ever considered maybe a side quest, they can affect how a city builds, but if somebody finds a small quest, they can do it on the side to, change the path or choose something else, like a one-off kind of quest?
So we have two types of real quest lines as they relate to players. We have I didn't mean types. No, not quest types.
Okay.
Two quest lines. So we have an overarching meta narrative that involves the world, and then we have those related to the individual and groups, right? The types then, yes, are three. You can say the three types if you like.
So the three types of quests are tasks, events, and narrative. So tasks are a little kind of more incidental quests. Like if I'm going to go send you out to kill 5 wolves, right? Do I need to actually tell you a story about that? I don't really need to give a designer a week's worth of work to figure out how to make killing 5 wolves interesting, right? If we just create the story out of what's happening in the game, then I don't need to write that. I can just let it happen, and players will create that story in their head. So if those 5 wolves are killing your livestock, you need to deal with those wolves in order to protect your livestock. So there's a story right there that I don't have to write. So tasks are generally these smaller sort of quests that kind of affect the node as a whole, that have consequences, that can be either successful or failure, right? So if you fail to kill those wolves, they'll continue wrecking your livestock, and that'll reduce the amount of stuff that your farm is generating. So we want everything to have consequences. We don't necessarily want to write a lot about that. That's where we want to focus on the narrative. That's where we're going to focus most of our kind of writing design work is going to be on telling the story of the world, and not these little tiny stories that are kind of more filler than anything else. We still think they're important. They're important for content. And they're important for people to have things to do during the day. But yeah, I don't know if I'm actually answering that question at all. Sorry. I got too excited.
So you got about 9 minutes?
9 minutes.
About
9
10,
minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
10, 15 people?
Yeah, one
You got
question.
about 45 seconds per person. Go.
Yeah, sorry about it. I was going to answer something else, but that's fine. What's up?
All right. Hello, I'm Connor, or Taleteller on the forums, and I would like to ask from the community, the Grey Sentinels, or Guild in Ashes of Creation. You have the Cleric and the Summoner, and we know that the Cleric is a master of life and death. If you combine the two, will you have a Necromancer?
So what I will say is this, that our 64 class list will be coming out soon, trademarked, and there will be a Necromancer in that class list, yes. I won't say what it is, though.
And how many times did you play the PvP? Because this guy looks like he was an employee. He was still alive.
2 times.
Okay, there you go.
And one quick question. If you delve too greedily and too deep into a mine, will something awaken in the darkness?
It's absolutely possible. You got to be careful in Ashes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Over there.
All right,
Thank
one
you.
over here.
All right, hi, my name is Kai from the Discord. Shout out to Rivi and Como and Tug for this question. What is the world's name?
Oh, Steve.
This is the Discord's question. We voted on it, so they kind of want an answer.
Are we ready
Should
for
I
this?
say it?
I don't know if we're ready for this.
We're ready for it.
I feel like we've built it up too much.
I know, I'm really scared.
Okay, so let me preface this with the fact that many cultures have a different name for the world.
Yeah.
There is a general common tongue name for the world in Ashes of Creation that you're coming back to. Gosh, I don't know.
I know, I feel really like on the spot.
You got him on this one.
Come on.
All right. It's like, Lord, okay. So, hold on, wait. Another important thing about Ashes of Creation is that I want to make sure that this story is something you get to experience and isn't spoiled before you get into the game. But, okay. All right. The name of the world in Ashes of Creation is Vera. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Not cool, Jeff.
I was wondering if Jeff was going to let me say something.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The name of the world in Ashes of Creation is Vera. Verra. Vera.
And that was not scripted at all. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Are you okay, Jeff?
Oh, yeah, okay. That's clear now.
I almost thought it was going to be an old wooden
All right, I'm going to take one more question, and then we're gonna get kicked out probably. So,
All right, so this question's from one of my guild members about alchemy. How do you feel about that? And then also, is there anything you can make to be like permanent boost to an individual that you can like put on your armor or hold around to boost anything?
yes. So, second part of the question: Are there permanent augments that you can apply to your character to augment like stat and stuff like that?
Is anything permanent?
Well, there's the tattoo. Well, I guess not permanent because you could remove it. But
Yeah.
the tattoo system could be something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, armor sets and stuff like that. What was the first question?
The first question is, what do we think about alchemy? We think it's pretty cool.
I think alchemy's cool. Yeah.
I do it regularly.
Good question.
Alchemy will almost certainly be a profession, yes.
All right, guys. Alchemy, you're going to have. It's one of the professions that you're going to be able to explore in your artisanry. That's going to give you the ability to kind of create these cocktails, these potions, these basically aids that can assist in either granting temporary buffs or revealing certain types of things. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
And anybody that didn't get their question answered, just swing by our booth. We're all working the booth, so we're answering questions all day long, all day tomorrow too. So
Absolutely. And guys, I want to reiterate again that it is an absolute pleasure and honor to see the type of enthusiasm and excitement that's going into this from the community. You don't understand the smiles that you put on our faces at the studios every time we release anything about Ashes of Creation. To see your guys' involvement in this, to give us your feedback, the passion that you're putting into it honestly makes our days possible.
We feel
Thank
really,
you.
really, really lucky.
Yes.
Thank you.
very much. Thank you very much for coming.
What about swag?
Thank you guys.
All right.
See you at the booth.
Alpha Key!
Oh, Alpha!